The state capital of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, is along the mighty Susquehanna River. And in the midst of this capital city is one of the most magnificent state houses in America. It was dedicated by President Teddy Roosevelt. When he came, he saw it as an extraordinary building representing the power and growth of one of the founding colonies of America. But woven into that story is the story of faith. Our founding fathers, as well as the founders of the State House in Harrisburg, recognized that faith and government were not separate, but were united, that God and government worked together to make the story of Pennsylvania possible. From the planning of this whole region by William Penn to its dedication as the State House, the message of God and faith and religious liberty are a seamless whole.
It is truly a palace of art. It's been called that, but it's also a palace of faith because we see the religious heritage that Penn gave to us put into art all over this building.
When you enter into the Rotunda of the state capitol building in Harrisburg, you're struck by its grandeur, its lofty ceilings.
And as you look up into the dome, you see a distance of more than a football field. The dome is based on the Basilica St. Peter's, the 7th largest freestanding dome in the world. And of course the staircase based on the Paris Opera House, so quite beautiful.
The Moravian tile that we have we're standing on comes from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and there are 482 individual scenes, and they all represent items that were very popular in Pennsylvania at the turn of the century.
And then when you look up, you see right here, you can't miss it if you read the words, "And my God, make it the seed of a nation." This building has at its crown a prayer. It's a prayer that has been answered by what happened in Philadelphia, and that's the seed of the United States of America. William Penn prayed that we would be here, and I'm so grateful that the Pennsylvanians who built this building remembered that Penn is really the real great founder of America.
On each of the floors and in the magnificent rooms and chambers, you see different images. Down this dark hallway, as we look up at the paintings, we can see how the different religious traditions that came for liberty in Pennsylvania are remembered in the seat of government. The church and the state have been friends in the history of Pennsylvania. In the governor's reception room, you see the story of William Penn, a story that takes us from the Reformation and the translation of the Bible right through his conversion to his establishment of Pennsylvania until we see this great experiment in religious liberty, his holy experiment, as he called it, becoming a reality.
And really what's unique about this room in particular are the paintings and the murals in here. There's 16 of them in here, and they were done by Violet Oakley. She spent 25 years of her life just painting murals. They began here in the governor's reception room. All told, she painted 43 murals total. She painted everything in the Supreme Court chamber and everything in the state Senate.
We are now in the Senate chamber. There are 50 Senate members. Currently the number is 27 Republicans and 23 Democrats. Work in here was done by Violet Oakley. You can catch the theme of faith and international peace and justice. And that is the theme that William Penn wanted to portray, a place where there would be freedom, where there would be justice, and free from strife. Over here, to my right, we see a ship, and it has slaves on it, and William Penn is negotiating the freedom of these slaves. And again, this is keeping with his philosophy that there should not be people put in bondage, that all human beings, regardless of their race or religion, ethnic background, should be treated fairly.
These are Bible verses that are inscribed in the bottom here.
One that speaks to me is in the center at the bottom. "And this know assuredly, that none ever trusted in the Lord and were confounded." And I think as you're dealing with policy and you feel called to this place, at points you question that calling and you say, "Lord, why am I here? You know, what's the purpose of this?" And we see the struggles and frustrations. But I think in that panel, you see that God's justice, that the outworking of His will His timing is not our timing, and His ways are beyond our knowing. But I think it's powerful to see that shared right there. None were confounded in the end, and that's, of course, by placing our faith in the Lord.
Over here's part of the Gettysburg Address. It quotes a famous saying, part of that address, "It is for us the living rather to be dedicated to the unfinished work." But he added two words, that this nation under God will experience a new birth of freedom. And so it was two words that he added that really set forth the future and continued unity of this nation.
Right there in the center, we see the great words, "Let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon." That's Paul from 1 Corinthians 3 that tells us that Christ is the foundation. What do we build on it? Wood, hay, stubble, or gold, silver, and precious stones. So the foundation of what we build. And what's fascinating is look at the dramatic way in which these two scenes from Pennsylvanian history have a foundation. It's a very interesting work of art. The foundation is the gospel narrative. And what they're saying is that this is the foundation, and look what these people build on. They built ransoming and peace, liberating and peace. These who are here are also building on a foundation. What are they going to build? Will it be something that has eternal value and significance? So I had a seminary professor that loved this verse. He used to say this, don't build a chicken coop on a foundation that was meant for a skyscraper. Okay, so I want to say that to our fellow legislators and citizens, okay? Don't build a chicken coop on a foundation that was built for an extraordinary seat of government that's brought liberty to the world.
So now we have the Supreme Court, and we have 16 panels that she did. Violet Oakley certainly was a brilliant artist and used allegories and much from the Old Testament and New Testament. And the whole theme here is called The Opening of the Book of Law. The Opening of the Book of Law. And she said there are three main considerations in law. The law itself, love, and wisdom. Those three components are very important.
We see in the Supreme Court chambers the importance of the law of God as it engages the law of man. We can see this as the Ten Commandments and other images of the great lawgivers that surround this chamber.
Immediately behind the justices is the Ten Commandments plaque. That painting represents the fact that there really was a belief in the common law concept when Pennsylvania courts were being developed, that all law finds its ultimate origin in God Himself. I'm very grateful, even if it's only for artistic reasons, that our Supreme Court in Pennsylvania still is willing to operate under an image of the law of God. And we ought to pray that that law would not be written on the walls, but as Jeremiah 31 says, it would be written upon our hearts.
Welcome to the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth. This body, the House of the People, was first gathered in 1682. I think you'll agree with me, though, that it's a phenomenal room. Again, just so beautiful with all the artwork that's here. I want to direct your attention first to the front corner here, where you see William Penn signing a treaty with the Indians. Penn was very much invested in positive relationship with the natives, and in fact, it was a very peaceful relationship during his time. The central photo we call the apotheosis, and in it you will see many of the prominent figures of Pennsylvania history, of course, Penn being in the center with the red cape.
But there's also a Bible verse from Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 7. And it says, and you can't see it from back behind, you have to get real close to see it, but it says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations, ask thy father, and he will show thee, ask thy elders, and they will tell thee. And basically, this verse is warning us as a nation as older individuals, as wiser individuals, to pass along this heritage, this history to the next generation.
It's an amazing portrait of Pennsylvania's history and the prominent individuals that are in it. Woven into all of it, of course, is the story of faith and God's blessings through the leadership of the state, told in the story of all of the individuals that are there. In the center of the chamber is the aisle that's very famous by reputation. Republicans, of course, being on, as we face the back, the left-hand side, Democrats on the right. Some other points of art here in the chamber. In the back of the hall, you see Baron von Steuben drilling the troops at Valley Forge, and you see that picture, which probably has been in every American history textbook in high school going back through time.
I love this picture because it reminds us that liberty is the product of people who believe in it. They were ready to sacrifice everything to be free. Washington says in one of his letters, "You can tell where our men have gone by the blood stains their bare feet leave in the snow." These men are starving to death. They're naked, they are exposed to the elements, and there was nothing keeping them there except their commitment to what they believed in. And I think that heroism is something that we need to capture again. Washington's character held these men and this country together. And Valley Forge is perhaps one of the most important places on our planet for America, not because we fought a battle there against an enemy. They fought against discouragement, starvation, weakness, and they came out as victors.
He was a provision of God's blessing, Baron von Steuben, of German-Prussian background, who came over and helped to lead a ragtag band and turn them into an effective fighting force. Other pieces of art adorn the hall, of course. Different aspects of Pennsylvania's cultural and historical heritage, our industry, and so forth are beautifully portrayed in stained glass artwork that's around the chamber. You'll see on the back in the top from the Gospel of John, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." I think it's instructive that it's aimed toward the front of the chamber where the Speaker of the House can reflect on those words, and certainly visible to all who serve here. Just a really wonderful place to serve the people, and a lot of that's about relationship beyond the incredible artwork that's here, and but again, humbling to have been selected to serve the people in this way.
The wall of separation between church and state has been used to remove every vestige of faith, God, and spiritual values from our culture in the 21st century. But when we walk down these corridors of the Capitol building in Harrisburg, corridors of power to be sure, but they're also corridors of faith. We see how the church and how faith in God and how various values of religious liberty and freedom of conscience from William Penn have come together to not just make aesthetic statements of beauty, but also foundational values that have shaped the history of this great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. A message that must not be forgotten, and in fact, must be shared throughout our nation.
For those of us who are honored to serve in this place, some here with us today, our responsibility to protect that heritage and continue to make sure that this is a place of religious freedom and heritage for all of us on into the future, not only for us now, but for our children and grandchildren as well.